Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, to nurture community, and to pursue the common good. I'm Rebecca Kay, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, you are welcome here, and we greet you with love. Our chalice lighter this morning is Oscar and Michael Kay.
We light this chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Let this be a time of peace. Let this be a time for curiosity. Let this be a sacred time, as at the confluence of rivers, where many waters come together as one. We began our service today with these words from the poet Mary Oliver.
I don't know who God is exactly, but I'll tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water-splashed stone, and all afternoon I listened to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck a stone, it had something to say, and the water itself and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone, and I too, whispered the moss beneath the water.
Our opening hymn today is Down in the River. It's a traditional folk song performed by the UU Congregation of Atlanta, singing at the Unitarian headquarters in Koloshvar, Romania, back in May 2012.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. much. And love that scene and have a
Well, that was beautiful. So right now, if we're talking about something viral, odds are we're talking about COVID, right? It's certainly the kind of viral I'm most focused on right now. But that was not always the case. So a long time ago, all right, 9 years ago, in a faraway land known as Atlanta, Georgia, this UU young adult was looking for ways to greater connect to his faith. See, I worked a job that was 1 to 9:30, so I couldn't ever make a weeknight meeting. So I started doing my old church's social media, the UU Congregation of Atlanta, because it was something I could do during the day. I wanted to help other folks my age find and discover Unitarian Universalism in our church, because it saved me, and I knew it would save others. So I wanted to try and boost our church's social media profile. And back then, well, there weren't very many UU churches doing social media, and even fewer who were doing it well. And I wanted UU to go viral. So I started doing an exercise where I worked on coming up with a 10-word tagline for Unitarian Universalism. We all know Unitarian Universalism. We all love Unitarian Universalism. And we all know and sometimes love that Unitarian Universalism is perhaps not the easiest religion to explain to someone else. So I figured a 10-word tagline, 10 words or less, would force me to be short, to the point, and memorable. So I tried a few different ones on social media posts, but the one I was most proud of was the tagline, Unitarian Universalism, love without exceptions. Because it kind of means two different things. We love people without exceptions, but it's also on us to love other people without exceptions. Once I had that tagline in mind, I decided to make a very basic graphic. It's very basic because my graphic design skills are self-taught and also very basic. So here is that graphic. So this graphic was the first graphic to kind of start to go viral in Unitarian Universalist social media spaces. You can see that this particular version of the graphic had about 350 shares. It was really the first one out there that did. And soon, a lot of individual UUs and UU churches were using the line, love without exceptions. Folks were using that viral meme and tagline, it was my form of evangelism. And it was my way of helping others to evangelize. Sharing a cute little graphic that also describes your UU faith might not seem like it at the time, but it's a subtle form of social media evangelism, and I, for one, am all for it. So that graphic eventually led me to connecting with some other like-minded UU social media folks. And we created a Facebook group called the UU Media Collaborative, where we helped each other create graphic-based UU viral images. We launched a Facebook page where we posted what folks were working on called UU Media Works, and that's still around on Facebook, although nothing new has been posted in years. So the most viral thing I ever had a part in playing were the UU Valentines. You may have seen some of these before. These were shared thousands of times. They're on even the official UUA website, which makes me giggle still. They show up everywhere. So I got inspired to make these because a friend tagged me in some silly Star Trek Valentine's Day cards, one Valentine's Day on Facebook. And I figured, why not make some cute and funny Valentines for UUs? So I came up with the idea and the text of each of these, and my co-leader of the Media Collaborative, Jessica Ferguson, did the graphics. And we put them out and bam, thousands of shares. Here's the very first post where you can see that was shared 1,700 times, just that one image. Every time someone shares one of these images, one of these graphics, one of these taglines, they're sharing a little bit about their faith. Even the silly ones might get someone interested enough to look us up on Google or to ask a friend about it. These kinds of taglines help you share your faith and helps others share their faith too. So what makes something go viral? What makes something spread and folks share online and cause, more and more attention to it? What makes a graphic or saying get shared that far and wide? In my experience, it has to be something authentic and comes from your true self. It has to be something unique and presents a new message. And it has to be something memorable, something that sticks in your mind so you remember it the next day. authentic, unique, memorable. So today, we're going to do an activity together. Just like I tried a decade ago, today you're going to try to come up with your own 10-word or fewer tagline for our church, the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City. Your tagline's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be finely wordsmithed. But I want you to try to come up with a 10-word or under memorable phrase that explains why you're a member here. What's special about this place? What's special about Unitarian Universalism? Go ahead and take a minute or two to think. Once you've got an idea, you can share it in the chat, and we will read them out loud. Once we've got a few in, I'll start to read them out loud. So we've got warm community, a knot in the Bible Belt, the only religion that makes sense to me, loving community, follow your own path, all faith, no faith, we love all, freedom to be loved for who you truly are. We wonder and celebrate together. First Unitarian is where my heart belongs. One you see, the place to be. You get a bonus point for rhyming there, Susan. Gives me meaning in life. Dogma without dogmatism. United by values, not dogma. UUs are the Oklahoma standard. A place where you can be you. And I invite you to keep writing these during the service today as they pop into your mind. Share them in the chat. And thank you. One final one, seekers of truth and justice. So our faith, Unitarian Universalism, might not be that easy to describe. But as you can see, the heart of who we are and what we are is easy to describe. So don't be afraid to share your tagline and what it means to you to be you. Because you never know who might be desperate enough to hear about it. I know I was desperate to learn about Unitarian Universalism, and I'm sure a lot of other folks are as well. Thank you. I'd now like to invite Marcia Woodward up to do our offering. Marcia?
Good morning. I'm Marcia Woodward, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm on the Board of Trustees and a member of Alliance. Every Sunday we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is the Homeless Alliance. The Homeless Alliance operates several housing programs for families with children, coordinates a community effort to house veterans and people who are chronically homeless, operates the IT infrastructure used by homeless serving agencies in central Oklahoma, and publishes the Curbside Chronicle, a magazine that provides a voice and legitimate source of income for people who are homeless. You may wish to make your donation using a credit card through our website, or this could be a good time to find your checkbook, write out a check, and put it aside to mail to First Unitarian. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world.
coming to the edge, running on the water, 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 coming to the edge, running on the water.
I was 8 when I started wondering about liberation. I had gotten through the mini goth phase of age 7, which is when human brains start to distinguish between fantasy and reality. With my mind full of wondering, especially when right in the middle of that kind of cognitive rocking of my world, I mean, Santa Claus, y'all. My best friend, Angie, stopped coming to school. Our teacher told us she had an illness with a big name, leukemia, and the doctors were helping. I don't remember the exact day when my beloved teacher, Mrs. Tanner, handed out the Grail, the Scholastic Arrow book club flyer for spring 1986. But I remember poring over it, carefully filling out the order form, and the sense of awe when a few weeks later, Mrs. Tanner passed out our treasures. The Babysitter's Club, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And I brought home my very own encyclopedia of baby names. I couldn't wait to crack it open. 8-year-olds love assigning names and meaning. So from the magical book of names, I learned that my friends' parents gave them names that mean princess, beloved, honeybee, queen of the angels. It was around that time that Mrs. Tanner carefully prepared us for Angie's return. She would be wearing a wig because her medicine made her hair fall out, and we should be kind. Angie's name, Angela, means messenger of God. That brought me to my name, Rebecca. Hebrew origin, one who is bound. What? No rainbows or flowers for my parents. I didn't even really know what bound meant, but I didn't like it. The dictionary used words like limited, restricted, enslaved. I understood being bound as being someone that stuff happened to. Like when we waited and waited and Angie never did come back to school. She died when we were 9. I kind of gave up having a best friend after that. Not doing that again. As I grew older, limited, restricted were words that also became associated with religion. Growing up in the shadow of my hometown's most famous resident, Reverend Jerry Falwell and his moral majority, words like God, Jesus, salvation, even church had the same impact as limited, restricted, enslaved. Faith meant being bound into a too small identity by the fear of hellfire. No, thank you. I wanted to be free. It turns out I had it all wrong about liberation. In 2004, when a friend invited me to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, I learned that church could be something other than an interesting sociological experiment. And saying yes to that brave invitation gave me a whole new definition of what it means to be bound. Choosing to bind myself in Unitarian Universalist community brought me salvation. Not a magical ticket to the sky, but daily, embodied, messy connection to the source of all and to my siblings in the human family, every single one of whom is worthy of love without exceptions. Even Reverend Falwell. What I thought for many years was freedom, bound by my fear of grief and my too small identity of disconnection disguised as independence, that was hell. As Saint Brene, AKA Dr. Brene Brown, says, humans were built for connection. That's science. Belonging to each other is why we're here. I was struck last week by the words Reverend Diana shared from the UUA's Widening the Circle report that call us to release the limitations and restrictions of the religion-inflicted trauma that bring many in the door. I had to leave outside bondage to the hell of shame and fear and a too small identity. The price of entry is vulnerability, willingness to be changed, to risk inviting someone to church, and to be bound to others through uncertainty, conflict, and loss. The reward is freedom. Freedom to explore the connections among many sources of universal truth: the Bible, biology, the Bhagavad Gita, and Beyonce. Freedom to seek and find support from community and from the universe in a million tiny ways that I can't explain. Freedom to let go of the need to name that mystery. Just let it be. So, as we all learn in middle age, it turns out my parents were right. I am one who is bound. Bound to community, bound to a truth that calls me to act on a mission bigger than myself. And it is in the binding that I have found liberation.
Thank you, Rebecca. Today is World Waters Day. Since 2005, this day has been set aside for a celebration of the rivers that bring water to our fields and crops, feed our lakes, nurture animals like fish, frogs, insects, and birds, serve as waterways for boats, and with their rapids and their burbling quiet places, provide us with the soundtrack for our dreams. Please join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of creation, we want to say how thankful we are for the rivers that cross the land and feed the earth. May we each day play a part in protecting them and in caring for the plants, animals, and people who rely on the rivers for life itself. At this time of the autumnal equinox, may we look to nature for a model in how to live, finding balance in all things, letting go of those things we no longer need, and taking the time to rest. And now, within the bounds of this beloved community, I invite you to share in the chat, or if you're with us on Facebook, in the comments, or if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can go ahead and write them in the comments there. The joys and the sorrows that you are carrying on and in your hearts today. Tim lifts up joy for pride. Chris lifts up the joys of visiting family members and the anxiety of participating in the Pride event. Lana lifts up very joyful to say that she was named the Best Supporting Actress at Jewel Box Theater last night. Heather says joy for the cooler weather and the turn of the seasons. For these things and for all the things left unsaid that we carry within us. We hold them in the bounds of this community and we say, Amen. Continuing on in a meditative frame of mind, let's listen to this music, For the Earth Forever Turning. It's in our hymnal number 163 by Kim Uller, performed here by Dr. Joseph Rivers, who's the music director right up the road at Hope Unitarian in Tulsa. UU minister Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd, in her book, After the Good News, offers this wisdom for all those who share the ministry of Sunday morning worship, ordained ministers, religious educators, musicians, and lay leaders alike. She writes, quote, Never forget that every Sunday morning when you rise to preach, someone in that congregation has just suffered the broken heart that they will spend a lifetime trying to mend. Never forget that someone in that congregation has just found a way through some great desolation. Never forget that someone in that congregation is here for the first time, wondering if this will be yet another place where they won't be noticed, won't be seen, won't be cared for. There they are, with their complex stories and their broken hearts and their limitations. There they are, all of them, every Sunday morning. There they are, waiting together for an honest word. Well, I will tell you that on any given Sunday, the temptation to offer an uplifting word is great, even if perhaps it's not always as fully honest as it might be. Because when someone is hurting, especially someone we care about, don't we just want to make them feel better? That urge is part of being human. From the time we are little children and we come to our parents in tears, asking them to fix the boo-boo that can be anything from skinned knee to a broken toy to a butterfly that's had its wings torn off and is dying. Some things can be fixed and saved. Some things cannot. But we want to fix them all. And a congregation has its hurting people. So many hurting people. Some physically ill, others struggling with mental illness. There are families dealing with the dementia of a loved one or facing their own descent into that dark tunnel. There are victims of abuse and harassment who are still trying to find their voice. There are people dealing with chronic underemployment or abusive work situations. There are people craving to proclaim their own identity, even as others try to squeeze their expansive spirits back into a soul-crushing binary battery cage. There are marriages falling apart and families estranged. There are people who wake up at 3 a.m, terrified by the state of the world. While I find myself wishing with all my heart that I could just make it all better, that I could fix all this hurting with a theology of simple salvation, that I could say in all sincerity, God never gives us more than we can handle. But I can't say that because I know that sometimes we get so much from God or the universe or just life itself that it crushes us. And that was before COVID came along and upended the only social support networks many of us had. To say that I don't have a simple solution to your pain may sound a little scandalous coming from a minister. Even within our own faith tradition, there is a history of Unitarian and Universalist evangelism, where people went out spreading joy through the good words of, respectively, reason and salvation. Back in the later part of the 19th century, Universalist minister Quillen Hamilton Shinn was so ecstatic and so filled with the good news of universal salvation, the idea that no loving God could ever damn a child of God to hell, that he preached on the subject daily And he traveled on horseback through at least 34 states and parts of Canada and Mexico, seeding Universalist congregations wherever he went. On the Unitarian side of our heritage, Reverend William Ellery Channing helped to bring the American Unitarian Association into being in 1825. The primary purpose of the AUA was to publish tracts and pamphlets and send out missionaries to spread the good news of reason, unity, self-improvement, and free will, as opposed to Calvinist predestination to individuals throughout the country. Back in those days, the good news that Universalists and Unitarians had to share would have been earth-shaking to so many. There is no hell. God loves each and every person. All are worthy. All are imbued with reason and with the ability to discern their own meaning. No one is predestined to heaven or hell or any place in between. What revolutionary messages those were. It's no wonder that so many of our Universalist and Unitarian ancestors were filled with evangelical zeal. But those messages fall differently on our ears today. Fewer people believe that there is a literal afterlife hell to begin with, including many mainstream Christians. And the idea that all God's children have a place in the choir, the idea of universal human worth, well, if not applied in reality, at least that thought receives a polite nod in theory from all but the most brazen white nationalists. So when it comes to good news, what are we left with? Do we even have any? Or as I asked last week, does our good news amount to a list of bad stuff that we don't believe? The answer isn't a simple one, and nothing in our faith is. And there is little in that answer that will lead to an immediate sense of relief from the pain so many of us, all of us, at one point or another, feel. I want to try to answer that question by way of a poem, specifically by reading Mary Oliver's poem, At the River Clarion. Now, despite what you might think based on the frequency with which Unitarian Universalists cite her work, Mary Oliver was not a UU, but she was a human being who knew deep pain. As she put it, quote, "For years and years I struggled just to love my life," unquote. And that struggle makes all of us part of the same church. Oliver writes, quote, "I don't know who God is exactly, but I'll tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water-splashed stone, and all afternoon I listened to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck a stone, it had something to say, and the water itself, and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone. And I too, whispered the moss beneath the water." And here is the first piece of good news. It's not just that all beings are worthy, it's that all beings are part of holiness. Holy in their softness like water, holy in their hardness like the stone, holy in their humble, hidden messiness like the moss. But more than any one of these, it is the relationship between them that is holy. It is the conversation between them that is holy. Too often, when modern day Unitarian Universalists proclaim the value of our faith, we talk about individual freedoms, individual worth. But the revolutionary message of Unitarian Universalism rests in the individual, not in the individual, but in the relationship between individuals. Oliver's poem continues, quote, "I'd been to the river before a few times. Don't blame the river that nothing happened quickly. You don't hear such voices in an hour or a day. You don't hear them at all if selfhood has stuffed your ears. And it's difficult to hear anything anyway through all the traffic, all the ambition." Unquote. And here is more good news, even if it's not easy news. Holiness doesn't suddenly present itself through miracles accompanied by thunderclaps and lightning bolts. It reveals itself slowly at the often glacial speed of organizational, social, and relational change. Unitarian Universalist fixation on covenant, on shared governance and shared ministry can seem really dull. But it is, in fact, a key part of our gospel, of our good news. Lasting change happens through adjustments brought about by healthy conflict and conversation between people, speaking their own truths and actively listening to the truths of others, especially to those whose voices have previously been silenced. There is nothing glamorous in this process. There are no romantic heroes. There are only people talking and listening and changing because of that listening. If to the Hindus, the most sacred sound of the universe is Om, to Unitarian Universalist, it might be, Continuing with Mary Oliver's poem, skipping a few lines, we come to these words, quote, "If God exists, he isn't just butter and good luck. He's also the tick that killed my wonderful dog, Luke." Said the river, "Imagine everything you can imagine and then keep on going." Maybe that word God isn't meaningful or is even hurtful to you. Maybe it's the identification of God as a he that causes pain. So we can change Mary Oliver's words accordingly and think about life being more than just butter and good luck. Life is also a terrible disease with a long foreign name. It seems too large and too complicated to descend upon the sweet, simple, and small bodies of our loved ones, taking them from us. This may, in fact, be the most challenging part of our good news, that the good includes the bad, that the two are inextricably linked, that the good and the bad, along with all the much more common just okay, are all a part of life, and that all of it is sacred. Here where we live, the Deep Fork River merges with the North Canadian. The North Canadian merges with the Canadian River. The Canadian River flows into the Arkansas River, and the Arkansas River merges with the great Mississippi. And along the way, countless tributaries contribute their waters, some small, some vast, into the larger river. Some waters are muddy, some are clear, some are sweet, some are salty. Some are red with clay and some are green with algae. But all of them matter. All of them are precious. All of them ultimately are the river. And the river, through its various permutations of dry bed, trickle, creek, stream, and torrent, is what keeps going on. I want to end with these words from Mary Oliver's poem. Quote, "My dog Luke lies in a grave in the forest. She is given back. But the river Clarion still flows from wherever it comes, and where it comes from and to where it has been told to go. I pray for the desperate earth. I pray for the desperate world. I do the little each person can do, and it isn't much. Sometimes the river murmurs. Sometimes it raves." Unquote. Looking back on our history, we can see where we come from spiritual ancestors who were excited to spread the good news that all are saved. There is no hell. No one is lost. All have been given the gift of reason to determine their own truth and meaning, that all are called to grow into their own sacred potential. But where have we been told to go? As people who believe in free will, the answer to that question is unknown. But one thing is clear. As a faith, if we are to continue, we must have meaning for a desperate earth. We must bear meaning for a desperate world. And we must do what we can, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like much. Dear ones, I know you are hurting. I know that there are days when it feels like it's just too much to take. And that feeling is right and justified and human. And I have no easy answer that will make it all better. But there is good news. And we need to share it. Like the river and its many tributaries, we are so much larger than the sum of our parts. We are part of holiness, each one of us in relationship with all others. Relationship is the river, and that river will keep on flowing long after any single drop within it has transformed into something else. And just as old Heraclitus once said, you can't step into the same river twice, because the river is constantly changing. Change isn't just possible, it is inevitable. And we, working together, can affect the nature of that change, even as we are changed in the process. And all of it is sacred. The joy, the pain, the conflict, the disagreement, the celebration, the annoyance, all of it is life. All of it is holy. As Mary Oliver tells us, sometimes the river murmurs and sometimes it raves. In the face of a desperate earth, in the face of a desperate world, let us now rave. This is not a time for murmuring.
The river is wide, I can't cross the moor, and neither have I the wings to fly. Give me a boat to carry us through another fall. Oh, love will hold us and love will heal. It will sustain us through this ordeal. Though I am tired and often scared, I know I'm held in a web of care. There is a ship that sails the sea. It's loaded deep, as deep can be, but not as deep as the love I feel. And yet that love makes absence real. The river is wide, I can't cross o'er, and neither have I the wings to fly. I sent this wish by my winged heart, though we're still one, though we're apart.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
Thank you. At the river, Clarion ends with these words. And still the river keeps coming, passing by on its long journey, its pale, infallible voice singing. May the river that is the beloved community and this larger faith, and the faith of all who believe in the power of love and relationship, keep rolling on. May its song remind you that you, too, are a part of holiness. Be well, dear ones. After the postlude today, we invite you to come back and join us in coffee hour for breakout discussions in small groups. I also want to remind you that we are still accepting submissions for our circles of care. We've started putting them together, but there's a lot of room for many more. We'd love to see everyone in this congregation participating in one of the circles. And a little plug for our Wednesday night family worship services as well. Be well, all.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark David Buckles, and I'm excited to share one of my favorite hymns with you that you may already know. It's Peace Like a River. And one of the things that I love about this song, this hymn, is that it's not all happy. It acknowledges the many things that we're feeling, and that we can have complicated feelings. We can hold pain and joy at the same time, and that's okay, and even that can be worth celebrating, that we feel those things. So I love that we sing about having peace like a river, and pain like an arrow, and strength like a mountain. And in the end, we return to this idea of peace, that we always have the ability to tune back into that peace like a river in our souls. And when I think of a river, I think of the fact that no matter what, it just keeps going. I hope you'll sing Peace Like a River with me. If you don't know it, I think you'll pick it up really quickly. It goes like this. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like the mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Thank you, everyone.